All right, let's get started. Besides, ACP doesn't agree with white tea settler colonial nation that the United States is. So they don't agree with that. I believe that it is. The white tea settler colonial project still maintains colonies and intra-imperialism towards indigenous and black people. Anyways, let's get started. The Mirais Nijman, who keeps feigning death. July 19th, 1999, to Asuma Jairangren, UN Special Report for the extrajudicial summary and arbitrary execution. Madam Asima Hungren, can't say the name. I am writing to you in the name of the woman, in the name of women, men, children, and elders of the Zapatistas National Liberation Army. We know we'll get plenty of criticism for what I am about to say and for wasting a good opportunity to show up the Mexican government in its genocidal policies against its indigenous people. But for us, political opportunities carries little weight compared to political ethics. And considering our confrontation with the Mexican government, it wouldn't be ethical for us to turn to an international organization that's lost all its credibility and legitimacy and whose death certificate was signed with the NATO bombing of Kosovo. With its war in the Balkans, the North American government, disguised as NATO, with England, Italy, and France as grotesque pawns, have managed to destroy its prime target, the United Nations. The United States, the global Geradarm, with its intelligent mega police action, has made a fool of what was once the most important international forum, violating the precepts that gave rise to the UN. NATO has carried out a war of cynical aggression, attacking its civilians indiscriminately, and tried to delegate intellectual authority to the satellite country who more than ever demonstrated their insignificance to those who have made the plans and already have made all the decisions. NATO, bellicose cynicism, was only topped by the billions of their chiefs and spokesperson statements. Quote, a humanitarian war, end quote, quote, errors made in good faith, and quote, collateral damage, end quote, weren't the only pearls of war they were selling in Kosovo. Last Tuesdays in Brussels, a NATO military official with a good number of stars on his chest made two chilling statements. Out of the total of 35,000 air operations, more than 10,000 were directed at specific targets, and about 25,000, could they have been carried out in error? If there are specific targets, does that mean there are non-specific ones? What kind of target is a person? The second statement raised has as many questions as the first. NATO's objective was never the complete destruction of the Yugoslavia army, nor reducing the country to ashes. Thank goodness. But you can't help think that before ashes come embers, and before those come coals, and before those come logs. To what size pieces had they been thinking of reducing the country and its army? The post-war banquet is served, and the news catered by Roger Walters' satellite fills the media all day long. The more said and more you can hide what can't be said on Georgia Solaire Longitudinale, June 19th, 1999. Oh shit, I got a restriction? What? How did I get a restriction? I got a restriction, everybody. Fucking wild. The UN complicity in the war in Europe was obvious. In light of our position on this war, the most minimal consistency forces us to distance ourselves from an organization that for years it's true carried out a dignified independent role in the international arena. It's not so today. From one end of the planet to the other, the UN has turned into a predictable legal support for the wars of aggression and great power of money repeats, never sated with blood our destruction. If in its silence the UN was as accomplice to the crime and destruction of Kosovo, it's taken a more active role in the war that the Mexican government is carrying out against its indigenous. Where did I get? Hold on. For being too anti-intolerant, huh? In May 1998, at the request of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the government attacked the community of Ampurio or Aguententia, beat up children, imprisoned men and women, while the military occupied what was then the seat of the Terra y Libertad autonomous municipality. The result of the UN's humanitarian work, quote unquote, in Chiapas are in the Correr Jusco jail in, oh my gosh, Tuxtla Gutiérrez. Today, July 19th, 1999, UN Security General Kofi Annan is awarding the United Nations Vienna Civil Society Prize to the self-styled Aztec Foundation, the foundation under the auspices of our native Meloslavic Ricardo Salinas Plengo spends its time carrying out campaigns against drugs using the white powder addicts, promoting coup attempts, and destroying indigenous schools with helicopters. For all that, for its ties with drug trafficking, for its call for coups, the Aztec Foundation will receive a medal of a certificate for $25,000 from Mr. Annan. So we can't have any confidence in the UN, and not out of xenophobia or a rejection of all things foreign, risking their lives, liberty belonging to, and prestige men and women from the 5 continents have been here as international observers. We shall leave the term, quote, foreigners to those like Zeldelio and his cabinet who have no other homeland than money. But money. Going back a little further, in February 1998, the International Civil Commission for Human Rights Observation, CCIODH, was here. Not only is their acronym bigger than the UN's, so is their moral authority, their honesty, their commitment to truth, and the authenticity of their struggle for peace with justice and dignity. Men and women from Germany, Argentina, Canada, Denmark, France, Greece, Italy, Nicaragua, Switzerland, Adulsula, Aragon, Cantabria, Catalonia, and Basque country, The Galicia, Madrid, Marchu, Alencia, all defied the Mexican government's most ferocious xenophobic campaign so far this century. They documented everything in a report that they dedicated to the indigenous Jose Tala Lopez Garcia, assassinated after having presented his community's complaints to the CCOIODH. Consults this report. It's inspired not only by the desire for a dignified peace, but also by truth and honesty. After the CCIODH, another group of Italian observers came in 1998. Things were worse for them than for the CCOIODH, because they were similarly expelled by Francisco Labastida, the current aspirant for the Mexican presidency, and by Fernando Soloes Camara, the person who now is in charge of international public relations for Labastida's campaign, and who back then was responsible for hundreds of illegal expulsions. Thousands of men and women from all over the world have come here, all honorable and of goodwill, who are such a bother to the institutionalized left all over the world. They came here and they saw that the government is denying a genocidal war. They left, many of them expelled, and they recounted and are still recounting what they saw. An unequal war between those who have all the military power, the government, and those who only have reason, history, truth, and tomorrow on their side, us. It's obvious who's going to win. We are. And we are not alone. With us, as well as international organizations such as Amnesty International, American Watch, Global Exchange, Mexico Solidarity Networks, and National Commissions for Democracy in Mexico, USA Pastors for Peace, Humanitarian Law Projects, Doctors of the World, Bread of the World, Doctors Without Borders, and many others whose names escape me now, but not their histories or their commitment to peace. For us, any one of them, individuals or groups, have more moral authority and more international legitimacy than the United Nations, which today has been converted into a cocktail party for the end of century neoliberal wars. With good reason, government representatives say they have nothing to fear from our visit. They're not afraid because they know the UN has been an accomplice to, and in the case of the Terra y Libertad autonomous municipalities, part of the war of extermination against the indigenous people of Mexico. According to what we've read and heard, you're an honest person. You probably joined the UN during the time when it was preventing wars, supporting different groups who were victims of government injustice, and promoting development for the most needy. Today, the UN promotes and supports wars and helps and rewards those who unalive and humiliate the excluded of the world. It hasn't escaped our notice that various international powers are nursing the idea of using the rich oil and uranium deposits under Zapatista soil for their own benefit. Those up above are making up complex accounts of calculations, entertaining the hope that the Zapatistas will make separatist proposals. It would be easier and cheaper to negotiate purchasing the subsoil with the cooperation of the Banana Republic, the Mayan nation, they call it. After all, it's well known that the indigenous are satisfied with small mirrors of glass beads That's why they're not giving up their intentions to involve themselves in the conflict so they can manipulate it according to their interests. They certainly have made no headway because it just so happens that the Zapatistas take the national liberation part of the EZLN very much to heart and sword. We may be anachronistic, but we still believe in outmoded concepts like national sovereignty and national independency. We haven't accepted, nor will we accept, any foreign interference in our movement. We haven't accepted, nor will we accept any international force playing a part in the conflict. We will fight it as firmly or more so than we have fought against those who decreed death through forgetting for 10 million Mexican indigenous. Only those with moral authority and legitimacy are welcome. Those who aren't appendages to armed forces such as NATO or hold military forces at the ready, like the UN with the unhappily celebrated blue helmets, those who want to be a part of the peaceful solution to conflict. We don't need any help to make war. We can manage that on our own. To get peace, we do not need help. Many people are needed, but they must be honest and there aren't many of those. Hold on a second. All right, don't be too sad now. The UN is not the only official international body collaborating with the Mexican government's counterinsurgency campaign. You have the International Committee of the Red Cross, the IRC, whose delegation in San Cristobal approached sublime civility and unintelligence. At a meeting with displaced people from Pulhu, the International Red Cross delegates stated without a blush that the displaced aren't in their own homes because they're lazy and want to be supported by the Red Cross. For the imbeciles wandering around under the IRC's flag, acclaimed for its neutrality and humanitarian aid, and the paramilitaries are an invention, the product of a collective hysteria of more than 7,000 displaced indigenous people. In Actel, the 45 people executed really died of infections. And in the highlands of Chiapas, peace and tranquility reign. One can assume that Alboras has already congratulated them and offered them some of his scraps. We're told he isn't very good at sharing. That they're still going about in their modern vehicles, adding accomplishments to the distinguished institution's curriculum vitae. How are you feeling now? The IRC will surely be the next to receive a UN Civil Society Service Award. On this dawn in which I write these lines, the moon is a scathe of cold light. It's the hour of the dead and our dead. And you should know that the Zapatistas dead are very relentless and talkative. They still speak despite being dead, and they're shouting history. They're shouting it so it can go to sleep, so that memory won't die, so that our dead will live shouting. Ogasico, January 3rd and 4th, 1994. Federal Army troops take the municipal seat of Osgasco in Zapatista's hands since the dawn of January 1st by assault. Following orders from the chief of the 13th Military Zone, Brigadier General Luis Humberto Portillo Leal, Infantry Major Adel Roberto Perez Nueve executed 5 members of the EZLN. General Portillo Leal had ordered that the Zapatistas, armed or not, were to be executed. The instructions were to take no prisoners, to unalive them all. If the press was present, they should only avoid unaliving prisoners because that would damage the army's image. 2nd Infantry Captain Lodingario Salvador Estrada executed other indigenous Zapatistas. Days later, in the Defense Department's office, Infantry 2nd Lieutenant Jimenez Morales was executed by military personnel, so he could be blamed for the assassination of 8 indigenous in the hospital of Ogasago. We didn't invent any of this information. You can collaborate it in a U.S. Department of Justice Act at the Executive Office for Immigration Review, Immigration Courts of El Paso, Texas, signed by Bertha A. Zingnaga, U.S. immigration judge, dated March 19, 1999. Case Jose Valdez Bajina, A76-804-703. In this file, Officer Jose Valdez Bajinas narrates how he had to desert from the army after having been threatened with death by Colonel Bacardo Bovides for his refusal to carry out summary execution orders. Along with Vales, other officers refused to carry out commands to assassinate. Their fate is unknown. These Madame Jahargir are the noms de Gorel and civilian names of those executed in Ogasago, Chiapas on January 3rd and 4th, 1994. Comandante Hugo Senior Francisco Gomez Hernandez, 2nd Lieutenant and Sergeant of War Material Alviero, Silverio Gomez Alvarez, and Sergeanti of War Mercenal, Freddy Borrells Perez Cortez, Infantry Insurgent Colexecto, civilian name cannot be revealed. They're going through the names right now. Infantry Insurgent Miguel Argortiro Aguilar Jimenez, Malacinio Salvador, Estebio Jimenez Gonzalo, Perez Mentois, Perez Corbando, Antonio Guzman Gonzala, Fernando Rutz Guzman, Marcos Guzman Perez, Dario T. Runs Hernandez, Diego Aguilera Hernandez, Elisino Hernandez Cruz, Juan Mendoza Lorenzio, Alasan Sanchez Hernandez, Leonardo Mendez Sanchez, Carmelo Mendez, Javier Hernandez Lopez, Filiberto Barreto, Lopez Perez, Pedro Lopez Garcia, Alfredo Sanchez Perez, Enrique Gonzalo Garcia, Manuel Sanchez Gonzala, Marcilio Perez Jimenez, Nicolas Cortez Hernandez, Vinci Lopez Hernandez, Javier Lopez Hernandez, Alejandro Santos Lopez. During those same days, more who weren't executed died in combat. In addition to execution, there was brazen torture. On January 7, 1994, the Army entered the community of Moralia, when the municipalities of Alt Moreno and kidnapped Santiz Gomez, age 60, Hermiliano Santos Gomez, 65, and Sebastian Lopez Santos, 45. A little later, their remains were found with signs of fractures and clear evidence of execution. The analysis of the remains were carried out by specialists from the non-government operation, Physicians of Human Rights. Tortures and executions were also methods used by the glorious quote-unquote federal army in the municipal seats of La Margaritas, Chiapas. There, during the first day of combat, Major Turan, previously tied to regional drug trafficking, kidnapped, tortured, and executed Eduardo Gomez Hernandez and Jorge Moreno Sololes Lopez in a Plan de Gawa Pratia neighborhood. The executed men were found with their ears and tongues cut off. These deaths or our deaths will not rest. The butchers of Osiango, and the assassins and torturers of Morelia and Las Margaritas are still free, enjoying health and prosperity. Thousands of shadows pursue them now, vying for the honor of seeing justice done. Last year, contrary to what their propaganda aimed at, the international consumer says the government renewed its armed clash with the Zapatista forces. On June 10, 1998, the military column, heavy with infantry, tanks, planes, and helicopters, attacked the community of Chavalyevo in the municipality of San Juan de la Libertad. To the Zapatistas, or El Basqui, to the government. The Zapatistas troops repelled the attack, and a heavy exchange of fire began, which was broadcasted by the national television channel. Our troops brought down a helicopter. Frustrated and angered, the soldiers again attacked, and the community of Union Progresios that same day. There, prisoners, militia prisoners, and summarily executed them. These are their names: Aflanflo Adolfo Gomez Diaz, Bartelio Lopez Mendez, Lorenzo Lopez Mendez, Andreas Gomez, Antonio Gomez, Sebastian Gomez, Mario Sanchez Ruz. The television reporter who covered them the 7,000 are unarmed, yet the 7,000 who arrived are armed. Everyone is silent. This is the new government strategy promised by the pathetic Rabosa Gambo, who's paid well for coordinating emptiness. And since we're on the subject of Rabosa's, New Bray clarifies the Axtel was not an execution. This time he's right. Axtel, and all the policies his boss Ernesto Zelido has followed are G-sides. This is the story since Ernesto Zelido rose to power. With the help of an assassination, the federal army has gained the cover and the money to feed their lust for blood and death. Seeking to improve the Army's impoverished public image, paramilitary squadrons were activated, organized, trained, equipped, protected by soldiers on active duty, and in not a few cases, created by soldiers as well as by PRI members. The objective was and is clear: to turn the conflict around and present it to the international public. The national public doesn't matter in the least of them, as the inter-ethnic war, here we go, or as the corrupt PGR tries to present it, as an inter-family war. The names chosen by the soldiers to baptize their new paramilitary units reflect their great imagination. Red masks with greatest military success, the Actel massacre. Peace and Justice, responsible for the assassination of a dozen indigenous people in the north of the state, the Chachulans. They act in the north and in the jungle. Anti-Zapatistas, indigenous revolutionary movements, they have training camps in military barracks and in Canadas, and are financed by the state PRI delegation. Los Penols, they're active in Camantan and La Margaritas. Albors of Chiapas, they're directly dependent on Crotec or Abors of Gulin. They wear green caps, and their war cry is Albors follows through. Now, I'm sorry if I messed these names up. So anyways, great choice of reading, especially after Trump's recent threats of invasion. Oh, thanks. This is the new strategy for Chiapas by the federal government, Zeledo's government. There's nothing new about it, nor is it a strategy. It's the same unintelligent beating down that assumes that the people who've known how to resist for 500 years won't be able to resist a year and a half longer. As for Ernesto's Zeledo Ponce de Leon, we must say today that everyone will be saying tomorrow, he's not a man of his word. He's a liar and assassin. When he leaves Los Panos, everyone, even those who treat him respectfully today, will be saying it, and all his corruption and crimes will come to public light. Persecution, exile, jail, or a probable end points to his future. It doesn't make us unhappy, but then our dead do not make us unhappy. I read in the press that you've met with some non-governmental organizations in Mexico City, and you'll meet others during our visit in Chiapas in a few days. I congratulate you. May you have the good fortunes and the honor of personally knowing men and women who, without officials and or institutional paraphernalia, have confronted every kind of threat and persecution from their work defending human rights in Mexico. I won't name any names here because in Mexico, and especially in Chiapas, the NGOs fighting for human rights are targets for the federal army. But any of these NGOs, from the smallest to the newest, has more moral authority in Mexico of below than the UN does. Perhaps you're not to blame, and it's only the UN's great leaders who, without protest, accept the sporadic role of NATO spokespersons and accomplices in Mexican government's war of extermination against its indigenous people. Nonetheless, we're not pessimistic about the international community's future. The UN failures isn't humanity's failure. A new international order is possible, a better one, more just than more human. There will have to be a prominent place for international and national NGOs that, unlike the UN, don't have armed forces in their service, nor hold themselves at the service of armed forces. In it, there will be a prominent place for men, women, and children, and elders who understand that the future of the world is being fought between the choice of exclusion, the war in Kosovo, and the world where many worlds fit, to which Zapatismo and Chiapas begins to hint. With them, and especially for them, the world will someday be a place where war will be a disgrace and peace a reality, where reporters for the various human rights violations will be rare, their sole activities being to search humanity's prehistory. Excuse my tone, Madam Asimo Horengera. I don't have a personal issue with you. It's just that the organization you represent no longer represents anything, and that we do not forget Kosovo, nor Empuro, or Argentina, or Orgontenta, nor Ogasago, nor Morella, nor Las Margaritas, nor Union Progreso, nor anything. Whatever's going on, we do not forget. We do not forget. Veil health to you, and may dignity never forget memory. If dignity were to lose memory, it would die. From the mountains of the south of the Mexican southeast, Subcomandante and Sergeant Marcos, CCRI, CG of the EZLN. All right. 34. Letter to Leonard Peltier. We all know who Leonard Peltier. I appreciate it, Sebastian, but I'm going to do the best I can. I'm going to do the best I can, sir. What is it? Stop. Why are you doing this? There we go. I'm going to do the best I can. October 1999. To Leonard Peltier. Leonard, through the National Commission for Democracy in Mexico, NCDM, and Cecilia Rodriguez, we extend greetings from the men, women, and children and elders of the Zapatistas National Liberation Army. Cecilia has told us about the grave injustice the North American judicial system has committed against you. We understand that power is punishing your spirit of rebellion and your strong fight for the rights of indigenous people in North America. Unintelligent as it is, power believes that through humiliation, arrogance, and isolation, it could break the dignity of those who give thoughts, feelings, life, and guidance to the struggle of recognition and respect for the first inhabitants of the land, over whom the vain United States has risen. The heroic resistance that you have maintained in prison, as well as the broad movement of solidarity that your case and your cause have motivated in the United States and the world reveal their mistakes, knowing that your existence and history, no honest or conscientious woman or man can remain silent before such a great injustice, nor can they remain still in front of the struggle, which, like all that is born and grows from below, is necessary, possible, and true. The Lakota people, who have the honor and fortune to call you their own, have an ethnic that reorganizes and respects the place of all people and things. They respect Mother Earth, relations to herself, and to all living things that live and die within her. They have an ethic that recognizes generosity as a measure of human worth. They recognize the steps of our ancestors along the path of today and tomorrow. They see women and men as part of the universe, where there is a power of free will to choose paths and seasons, to search for harmony, and to struggle against that which breaks and disorders it. The Lakota people have all of this and more that still escapes us, to teach the Western culture that steers against humanity and against nature in North America and in the rest of the world. Probably the determined resistance of Leonard Peltier is incomprehensible to power in North America and the world. Power calls its foolishness, quote unquote, to never give up, to resist. But the foolish are in every corner of the world, and in all of them resistance flourishes in the fertile ground of the most ancient of histories. Power fails to understand only Peltier's resistance, but also that of the entire world. It insists on trying to shape the planet. Should a coffin, just like the system it represents, with wars, jails, and police officers. Probably the power in North America thinks that it is in jailing and torturing Leonard Peltier in its jailing and torturing one man. It doesn't understand how a prisoner can continue to be free while in prison. It doesn't understand in prison he can speak with so many and so many listen. It doesn't understand how in trying to unalive him he has more life. It doesn't understand how one man alone is able to resist so much, to represent so much, to be so large. Why? Power itself isn't, and the answer never reaches its ears. Because Leonard Peltier is a people, the Lakota, and it is possible to keep a people in it is impossible to keep people imprisoned. Because Leonard Peltier speaks through the Lakota men and women whose persons and whose nature are the best of Mother Earth. Because the strength that this man and this people does not come from modern weapons. Rather, it comes from their history, their roots, their dead. Because the Lakota know that no one is more alive than the dead. Because the Lakota and many other American indigenous people know that resisting without surrender defends not only their lives and their liberty, but also their history and the nature that gives them origin, home, and destiny. Because the great ones always seem so small to those who cannot see the history of each one keeps inside. Because the racism that now governs can only imagine the other and the different in jail, or in the trash can, where 2 Lakota natives were found last month, murdered in the community of Pine Ridge. This is justice in North America. Those who fight for their people are in jail. Those who despise and murder walk unpunished. What is Leonard Peltier accused of? What is Leonard Peltier accused of? Not of a crime he didn't commit. No, he is accused of being the other, of being different, of being proud to be the other and different. For power, Leonard Peltier's most serious crime is he search to rescue the history of the Lakota, his people, in their past, in their culture, in their roots, for power. This is a crime because being rooted in history impedes being tossed around by its absurd machine. That is the system. If Leonard Peltier is guilty, then we are all guilty because we seek out history on its shoulders. We fight to have a place in the world, a place of dignity and respect, a place for ourselves exactly as we are, which is also much more, which is very much how we were. If the indigenous people of the North and the indigenous people of Mexico and all the indigenous people of the entire continent know what they have our own place being who we are and not pretending to have another skin color, another tongue, another culture than the other people of color who populate the entire world should know it too. And then power must be known, must know it. So that it learns the lesson well, so that it doesn't forget it. Many more paths and bridges need to be walked from below. On these paths and bridges, you, Leonard Peltier, have a special place, the best, next to us, who are like you. Leonard Peltier receive a embrace from one who admires and respects you, and who hopes that one day you will call him brother. Fail health to you, and hope that injustice disappears from tomorrow with yesterday. Now I have to do a thing. God damn it. There we go. Sal Comandante and Sergeanti Marcos. Nice. They actually recognize Leonard Peltier. That's awesome. My comment is so attractive. How am I? That's Corey. That's wild. I have no idea who that person is. Section 2. Beneath the Mask. This section contains the SUP's most philosophical and literary writings. These are texts where the writer sits in deep reflection on the world, where he seeks strength and points of reference in other writers and thinkers. His aloneness, his hopes, his humor serves as windows to the inner man, and his fashions a selfless self, a person without a face, a personality who each day struggles to be better. Here we go. Open the crack of history. September 1999. The radial flu, Pina. Another death, mistaken embrace. And this is a small little poem. I'm not good at reading poems. When I start to write you, the ink wells stir. The cold black ink wells blush and tremble, and a bright human warmth rises from the dark depths. When I start to write you, my bones are ready to write you. I write with indelible ink of my love. Miguel Hernandez. Now the moon is I don't know this word. Hold on a second. This shouldn't take long.
Now the moon is a lacquered nail.
Okay. Now the moon is a lacquered nail that strums nights, strings, and makes a storm. A storm in every sense. The frightened moon hides herself. A white girl, a dark light that clothes itself in darkling clouds. Now the storm is the lady of the night. The lightning sketches trees in foolish shadows with short and hurried strokes. Down below it rains, often as war brings pain. It brings pain and remembrance because memory is made fertile by pain. Without memory, the painful feeling would simply ache, and nothing would be born of it. And therefore, nothing will grow, while calendars, each one is life, fill up. The shadow writes or paints. There is a double 15, second 2 of 7. That's an anniversary, a fiesta, a remembrance and pain and joy in memory. Barely was the first letter gone, the messenger of death, when the shadow that fills us starts sharpening the point of the second letter. If the first was for the person who left, the second is for the one who trails the absent one. Augusts, long and humid, passage reach September and touches dates for celebration and remembrances. Like dissatisfied memory, the rain taps her impatience on the little roof, and more than once, the mocking wind turns out the lights, spending papers and ink into the mud. I did right. The shadow toils between open sails and lifting papers, as if for the sailor, sailing was only about the winds. One sheet of paper has been left in the corner of the little hut. Between the lightning winks, one can see something is written. Just a moment. I'll try to get closer. Write the mud. And this fog falls in just like that. It is hard. Good. There it is. This is what I imagine to read. Letter 2. I propose to you, with the gravity of life's final words, that we embrace in a commitment. Let's go out into open spaces. Let's take risks for another and with him. Wait with outstretched arms for a new swell in history to lift us. Perhaps it is already doing so in the silent and subterranean way, like buds, like beat beneath the winter's ground. Ernesto Sabato, End Before the End. P.S. Which, as you will see below, explains why of the 15 double, as this is the second of the 7. 15 years ago. Every August, year after year, the mountains of the Mexican southeast managed to give birth to a particularly luminous dawn. I don't know the scientific causes, but during this dawn, this one single dawn in the whole of the disconcerting August, the moon is a hammock of swaying radiance, iridescence. The stars marshal themselves to encircle the center of the Milky Way, proudly lights up this thousand wounds of clotted light. In this August of the end of the millennium, the calendar pointed to the 6th day when this dawn appeared, and with the swaying moon came back a memory of another August, another 15 years ago, when I began my entry into these mountains that were and are, like it or not, home, school, road, and door. I began my entry in August, and I didn't complete it until September. I should confess something to you. When I laboriously climbed the first of the steep hills that abound in these parts, I was sure it would be my last. I wasn't thinking of revolution, of high human ideals, or the shining future for the dispossessed and forgotten of always. No, I was thinking I'd made the worst decision of my life, that the pain that squeezed my chest more and more would end up totally closing off my increasingly skimpy airway. That the best thing for me would be to go back and let the revolution manage itself without me, along with similar rationalizations. If I didn't go back, it was only because I didn't know the way back. All I knew was that I had to follow the compranero preceding me, who, judging by the cigarette he was smoking while effortlessly negotiating the mud, seemed to be merely out for a stroll. I didn't think that one day I'd be able to climb a hill while smoking and not feel as if I was dying with each step, or that at times would come when I'd be able to manage the mud that was abundant underfoot as the stars are overhead. No, I wasn't thinking at all then. I was concentrating on every breath I was trying to take. What finally happened is that At some point, we reached the highest crest of the hill, and the man in charge of the meager column, we were three, said we would rest there. I let myself fall in the mud that seemed closest and told myself that perhaps it wouldn't be so hard to find the way back. That all I would have to do would be to walk down for another eternity, and that someday I would have to reach the point where the truck had dropped us off. I was making my calculations, including the excuses I would give them and give myself for abandoning the beginning of my career as a guerrilla, when the campanero approached me and offered me a cigarette. I refused with a shake of my head, not because I didn't want to talk, but because I tried saying no, thanks, and only a groan had come out. After a bit, taking advantage of the fact that a man in charge had gone off some distance to satisfy what is referred to as a basic biological need, I used the .20 caliber rifle that I was carrying more like a walking stick than a combat weapon, and pulled myself up as best as I could. That was how I was able to see something from top of the mountain that had a profound impact on me. Now, I didn't look down. I didn't look towards the twisted scribble of the river, nor to the weak lights of the bonfires that dimly illuminated a distant helmet, nor to the neighboring mountains that painted the ravine, sprinkled with small villages, fields, and pastures. I looked upwards. I saw a sky that was a gift and a relief, no more like a promise. No, more like a promise. The moon was like a smiling nocturnal swing, the stars sprinkling blue lights, and the ancient serpents of luminous wounds that you call the Milky Way seemed to be resting its head there, very far away. I stayed looking for a time, knowing I'd have to climb up that wretched hill to see this dawn, that the mud, the slips, the stones that hurt my flesh inside and out, the tired lungs incapable of pulling in the necessary light air, the cramped legs, the anguished clinging of the rifle walking stick to free my boots from the imprisoned mud, the feeling of loneliness and desolation and weight I was carrying on my back, which I came to know later was only a token, since in reality there would always be three that are more. Anyway, that token weighed tons to me. That all of that and much more that could come later is what had made it possible for that moon, those stars, and the Milky Way to be there and no other place. When I heard from behind the orders to renew the march, up in the sky, a star surely fed up by a subjugation of a black roof managed to break away, and by falling to leave a brief and fugitive trace on a nocturnal blackboard. Quote, "That's what we are," end quote, I said to myself. Quote, "Fallen stars that barely scratch the sky of history with a scrawl," end quote. The campanero asked, quote, what did he say?" "I don't know," replied the man in charge. Could be his already got a fever? We'll have to hurry, end quote. What I'm telling you happened 15 years ago. 30 years ago, a few people scratched the history, and knowing this, they began calling to many others, so that by dint of scrabbling, scratching, and scrawling, they would end up rending a veil of history so that the light would finally be seen, and that and nothing else is the struggle we are making. So if you ask us what we want, we will ashamedly answer to open a crack in history. Perhaps we are asking what happened to my intentions to turn back and abandon the guerrilla life. And you might suppose that the vision of that first dawn in the mountains made me abandon my idea of fleeing, lifting my morale, and firmed my revolutionary consciousness. Well, you are wrong. I put my plan into operation and went down the hill. What happened is I mistook which side to go down. Instead of going down the slope that would take me back to the road and from there to civilization, I went down to the side that took me deeper into the rainforest. And that led me to another hill, another and another. That was 15 years ago. Since then, I have kept climbing hills, and I have kept mistaking which side to go down. And every August 6th keeps giving birth to a special dawn, and all of us keep being falling stars, barely scratching our history. Veil with nuts on top. Health to you. And wait a minute, wait. What is that shining so bright in the distance? It looks like a crack. The sup on the top of the hill, tossing a coin to see on which side of the hill to go down. That's the end of that one. 45. Sounds like he was like, I don't know if I want to do this. No one there. And there's only 4 of us. We know what we're doing. Is it worth it? December 1994. To whom it may concern, I am a fugitive. Once I was born, they locked me up inside of me, but I left. My soul stretches for me through hills and valleys. I hope my soul never finds me. Fernando Paseo. Why I write this? From one side, report arrived from our compañero about preparations for the advance of our units, and on the other side, the last stack of unanswered letters burned. That is why I write to you now. I always said to myself I would respond to each and every letter we received. It seemed to me that it was the least we could do to answer the many people who had bothered to write a few lines and risk sending their names and addresses hoping for a response. Again, war is imminent. I definitely cannot save these letters. I should destroy them. Should they fall into the hands of the government, they should cause problems for many good people and a few bad people. Now, the flames are high and their colors change. Sometimes they are an iridescent blue that never fails to surprise this night of crickets and faraway lightning, which approaches a cold December of prophecies and pending accounts. There are quite a few letters. I managed to answer a good part of them, but I would barely deplete a pile when another would arrive. Syphilis, I said to myself, or the vulture eating Prometheus entrails. My other self adds, never missing a beat with his skepticism. I should be sincere and confess that lately, the little pile that arrived habitually was growing smaller. At first, I attributed it to the noisy government agents when I realized that good people get tired and they stop writing, and sometimes they stop fighting. Yes, I know that writing a letter isn't exactly an assault on the Winter Palace, but the letters made us travel so far. One day we would be in Tijuana, the next in Merida, sometimes in Manchukuo, or in Guerrero or Veracruz, or Guantánamo, or Chihuahua, Nairati, or Guerrero, or Mexico City. Sorry, everybody. Sometimes we would travel further on to Chile, Paraguay, Spain, Italy, Japan. So now they are over those. So now they are over those trips that brought to our hips more than one smile, that warm, cold, sleepless nights, or refreshed the days of tired heat. Anyways, as I said, I had decided to respond to all the letters, and we, the knights errant, know how to keep our promises, as long as they are not above love. So I have thought of our generosity and how it would alleviate my heavy guilt if all of you accepted one single and overwhelming missive in which each of you would feel eloquently addressed. Vale, since you cannot protest or express disagreement, you could, but I won't hear about it. Give in the mail and centres. I will proceed then to give free rein to the dictatorship that rules my algae hand. When it comes to writing a letter, what better way to begin than with a few lines from Peso, which are cursed and prophecies, and that say, I think. Here we go. The gaze, which is looking where it cannot see, turns. We both speak of what was not retained. Does this begin or end? In such and such, on such and such a month of the infallible year of 1994, to whom it may concern, I want to say a few things about what was happening since January. Many of you wrote to say thank you. Imagine our surprise when we read in your letter that you are grateful that we exist. I, for example, whose most affectionate gesture from my troops has been one of resignation. When I arrived at one of our outposts, was surprised to find myself surprised. And when I am surprised, unusual things happen. For example, I might bite down too hard on my pipe or break the stem. For example, as I look for another pipe, I might find some candy and commit the grave error of crackling it, a sound that only cell phone wrapped paper makes, and which the plague called children can hear from dozens of meters away, even kilometers. If the wind is in their favor, and if this happens, for example, I might raise the volume on the little tape player to drown out the noise from the rapper on the song that goes, he who has a song will have a storm. He who has company will have solitude. He who follows a good road will have dangerous points, which will invite him to stop. But the song is worth a good storm, and the company is worth the solitude. The agony of haste is always worth it, though the points are filled with truth. Heriberto appears in the little room. All of these things invariably happen in a little room with a roof of tin or cardboard or grass or nylon, with a face on him that says, I found you. I pretend not to see him and whistle a tune from a movie whose name I can't remember. Anyway, in the movie, the whistle works for a hero because a girl is very good looking girl, smiles and comes up to him. But I realize that it is not a girl who Herberto who approaches. Next to him comes Toinati with her corncob doll. Toinati, who gripes about giving me a kiss because, quote, it itches. Who has pointy little teeth, who will be 5 years old and then will be 6, is Sup's favorite. Herberto, the biggest crybaby in the Lakandan jungle, who draws the anti-submarine ducks, who is the terror of the large red ants and the Christmas chocolate, who is Anna Maria's favorite, is the punishment that some vengeful god has spent the Sup for being a transgressor from violence and the professional of the law. What wasn't that it? Well, don't worry about it. I don't know. So pay attention. Listen to what I have to tell you. Herberto arrives and tells me that Eva is crying because she wants to see the singing horse, and the major does not let her because he is watching Decameron by Posonali. Of course, Herberto doesn't refer to the movie by title. What I can guess by his description, the major is watching old women naked. Ew. For Herberto's, all women who wear a skirt above the knee are naked. And any woman above the age of 4, like Eva, is a VIEGA. I know that this is one of Herberto's sneaky schemes to take the cellophane wrapper candy that called like a siren on the Titanic in the middle of the fog. Herberto and his ducks are coming to the rescue because there is nothing sadder in this world than a candy without a child to rescue it from the prison of its cellophane. Tainati, on the other hand, discovers a mud quote unquote rabbit. In other words, it's black. She decides to submerge it in a puddle that, in her estimation, was all the necessary characteristics to test its mud-proof quality. Faced with envision of the general command of the EZLN, and I played unintelligent and pretended I'm very caught up in my writing. Realizing this, Herberto draws a duck. Irreverently, he calls it the Sups. I pretend to be offended because Herberto argues that my nose is just like the duck's bill. Tonati, meanwhile, puts the muddy bunny on a rock next to her corncob and looks and analyzes them with a critical eye. It occurs to me that the results don't satisfy her because she shakes her head with the same obstinacy she does when she refused to give me a kiss. Herberto, confronted by my indifference, seems to give up and walks away, and I am satisfied with my unquestioned victory. Then I realize that the candy is gone, and I remember that Herberto made a strange movement as I gazed at the drawing. He took it from under my very nose, and with this nose, that says a lot. I am depressed, and more so when I learned that Salinas is packing to go off to the World Trade Organization. It seems to me that it was unjust when he called us transgressors of the law. If he knew Humberto, he would know that compared to Humberto, we are even more law-abiding than the leadership of the PRI. Anyways, I was talking about my surprise when I read those thank yous or to Chaco, El Moy, Mario, or La Laura, or to any of the men and women who cover their face to make themselves present to others, or who uncover their faces to hide. I adopt my most reverent tone to give thanks for so many thank yous. When Anna Marie appears in the doorway, Humberto is crying and holding her hand. She asked me why I won't give Humberto any candy. Quote, not giving him candy? And I look at his face, all evidence of the candy now hidden beneath the snot and tears, which have won over Anna Maria. That's right, she says. Humberto says he gave you a drawing in exchange for candy, and you didn't keep your word. I feel the victim of an unjust accusation and put on the look of an ex-president of the PRI who is prepared to take over a powerful government agency and climbs the podium to give his best speech. Anna Maria, without a word, takes the bag of candy. Let's see where the candy is, and gives it to Humberto. Here, she says, the Zapatistas always keep the word. They both leave. I am really sad because that candy was for Eva's birthday, and I don't quite know how old she is, because when I asked her mother, she said 6. But, quote, but the other day you told me she was going to be 4, end quote. I complained. Yes, when she turns 4, she begins to be 5. In other words, she's around 6, she explained firmly. And yet I am left counting my fingers and doubting the entire educational system that teaches that 2 + 2 is 2, that 1 + 1 is 2, that 6 × 8 is 48, and other transcendent things. In the southeast mountains of Mexico, obviously these precepts do not hold true. There is another mathematical logic at work here. When the Zapatistas are very other, El Monacra once observed and told me that when he ran out of brake fluid, he would use his urine instead. The other day, for example, there was a birthday party. The youth committee got together and organized the Zapatistas Olympics. The master of ceremonies declared that the long jump competition was about to start, which really meant who jumps highest. Next was the high jump, which really meant who jumps the furthest. I was counting on my fingers again when Lieutenant Ricardo arrived and told me that they had gone to sing Happy Birthday at dawn. Where was the serenade? I asked. I was happy that everything was returning to normal, since it was logical that La Mananatis be sung at dawn. I don't know. In the cemetery. Answered Ricardo. The cemetery? I began to count on my fingers again. Yes. Well, it was the birthday of a compa who died in combat in January. Ricardo says on his way out that the drag race were next. Good, I said to myself. A birthday party for a dead person. Perfectly logical. In the mountains of the southeast Mexico, I sighed. I am sighing with nostalgia. remembering the good times when the bad guys were the bad guys and the good guys were the good guys, when Newton's apple followed its irresistible trajectory from the tree towards some childish hand, when the word smelled like a schoolroom on the first day of class, a fear of mystery, of newness. I am singing empathetically when, without warning, Beto comes in and asks if there are any balloons. Without waiting for my answer, he starts to look among maps, operative orders, war communiques, pipe tobacco, ashes, dried tears, red flowers, colored with pen, cartridge belts, a smelly ski mask. Somewhere Beto finds a bag of balloons and a photographer of a playmate. Pretty old, the picture, not the playmate. Beto stops for a minute and decides between the bag of balloons and the picture, and he decides that all children do. He takes both of them. Like always, I've always said that this is not an army headquarters, but a kindergarten. Yesterday, I was told El Muy he should put in some anti-personal mines. Quote, "You think the soldiers will come all the way here?" he asked me, worried. I answered, trembling, "I don't know about the soldiers, but what about the kids?" El Moines nods, agreeably, and begins to tell me about this complicated design for a booby trap, a fake hole with stakes of poison. I like the idea, but since the kids aren't boobies, I recommend that we electrify everything and place machine guns at the entrance. El Muy thinks a while, says he has a better idea, and leaves me. What was I saying? Oh yes, about the candy of Eva that Harberto took. So there I am, calling every camp over the radio in search of candy so I can replace the bag of candy for Eva when Eva shows up with a little pot of tamales. Quote, "My mother sends these because today is my birthday," she says to me with a look that in 10 years or so will provoke more than one war. I thank her profusely. And what else could I do? I say I have a present for her. Where is it? She says, demand, and I began to sweat because there is nothing more terrible than the look of dark anger. Eva's face began to transform itself like that movie of El Santos meets the Wolfman, and all I can do is stutter. To make things worse, Harberto arrives to see, quote, "If the sup is still mad at me," I began to smile to give me time to figure out how I can give Harberto a good kick. Even Eva notices that Harberto has an almost empty bag of candy. She asks him where he got it, and he says in a sugary and slurry voice, the chup, the CHUP. I didn't realize that he meant the sup until Eva turns and reminds me. "And my present?" Herberto's eyes pop out when he hears the word present. He drops the bag of candy, which by now is empty, and sliding up to Eva, saying, with a sticky cynicism, "Yeah, what about your present?" Our. I repeat once again, thinking about that kick, when I notice that Anne Maria is close by. Right away, I say, "It's hidden." "Where?" asks Eva, already tired of the mystery. But Herberto views this as a challenge and opens up my backpack. He tosses out my blankets, altimeter, compass, tobacco, a box of bullets, a sock. He stops when I shout, It's not there. Alberto then starts on El Moi's backpack, and he is about to open it when I say, you have to answer a riddle to know where the present is. By now, Alberto is fed up with the tight straps of El Moi's backpack, and he comes to set by my side. Eva does too. Beto and Toinati, I can't say it, come near, and I light my pipe to give me time to measure the size of the riddle problem I have gotten myself into. I take out a photo of a Zapata from my backpack and show it to them. Is he climbing up or down? I ask Beto. Is he standing still or is he walking? I ask Eva. Is he talking? Is he taking out or putting away his sword? Ask Tonati. Has he just fired his pistol or is he going to fire? Ask Herberto. Oh my gosh. Let me see where we're going here. Hold on a second. 173. Okay, we're almost done. 173. All right. I am always surprised by the 84 years old photo of old Don Antonio gave me in 1984 and how many questions it elicits. I look at it one last time before I decide to give it to Anne Maria. And the picture raises one more question. Is it our yesterday or our tomorrow? In this climate of curiosity and with a surprising coherence for her 4 years, almost 5 or 6, Eva asks, what about my present? The word present provokes identical reactions to Beto, Toyota, Toinati, and Harberto. They all start yelling, where's my present? I'm trapped and on the point of being sacrificed. But in walks Anna Maria, who saves my life, as she did in San Cristobal almost 1 year ago under very different circumstances. Anne Maria has an enormous bag of candy with her. Here's a present that Sup has for you, she says, while giving me that I don't know what you mean would do without women look. While the children decide to fight over how they will divide the candy, Anna Maria salutes me and says, reporting, sir. The troops are ready to leave. Good, I say, as I strap on a pistol. As always, we will leave at dawn. Anna Maria leaves. Wait, I call her and give her the picture. What's this for? She asks, peering at the photo. We'll need it, I reply. For what? She persists to ask. So we'll know where we're going, I reply while inspecting her gun. Above us, a military plane negotiates the skies. Well, don't get fed up. Well, don't get fed up. I'm almost done with this letter of letters. First, though, I need to get the kids out of here. To conclude, I will answer some questions you are surely ask. Do we know where we're going? Yes. Do we know what awaits us? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes. Who can answer these previous 3 questions with a yes and remain still and do nothing without feeling that something deep inside is tearing apart? Veil health to you and the flower for this tender fury. I think it deserves one. From the mountains of the Mexican Southeast, Subcomandante and Sergeant Marcos Zapatistas National Liberation Army. P.S. For writer's analysis, the general public, brilliant writers have found some very valuable parts of the Zapatistas movement. Nevertheless, they have denied us our fundamental essence, the national struggle. For them, we continue to be provincial, citizens capable of a consciousness of our own origins and everything relative to it. but incapable without internal help of understanding and making our concepts like nation, motherland, and Mexico. They will chime in during this gray hour with minuscule letters. For them, it is. Oh gosh, I've been reading a lot, so I'm really getting detrimental in my reading. Sorry, everybody. For them, it is all right that we struggle for material needs, but to struggle for spiritual needs is an excess. It is understandable that these pens now turn against us, and that that is too bad. Someone has to be responsible. Someone has to say no. Someone has to say enough. Someone has to leave the prudence to one side, the value dignity and sham above life. Someone has to these magnificent pens, we understand the condemnation that will flow from our hands. All I can argue in our defense is that nothing we did as for our pleasure. What we have said and done has been to please ourselves with the joy of struggle, of life, of speech, of walking. Good people of all social classes, of all races and generations, help us to unburden their conscience, and others to be fashionable. The majority help because of their conviction, because of their certainty that they had found something good and new. We are good people. That is why we are letting everyone know what we are about to do. We should prepare ourselves. We should not be taken by surprise. This warning is disadvantages for us, but not as great as a disadvantage as a surprise would be. To those good people, oh my gosh, I want to say, I hope you continue to be good, that you continue to believe what you not allow skepticism to bind you to a sweet prison of conformity, that you continue to search, to seek out something in which to believe, something for which to fight. We have also had some brilliant enemies, writers who have not been satisfied with easy condemnation, who have sought out strong, firm, coherent arguments with which to attack us. I've read brilliant texts that attack the Zapatistas and defend a regime that must pay dearly for the sake of appearance, for someone to defend it. It's a shame that in a long run, you wound up defending the vain and childish cause. It is a shame that you will end up falling along with the edifice that is crumbling. PPS, oh my gosh. Okay, good. This is the last page, everybody. Which on horseback, accompanied by the mariachis, singing beneath an old woman's window, that Pedro Infante song that called, quote, "They say I am a womanizer," and ends with, "Among my sweet loves, one is worth more than other, one who has loved me without rancor, and my Terranarian, a beautiful old woman, who I don't deserve, who with her heart offers me love divine. In front of a grandmother, one is always a child, and it hurts to leave. Goodbye, grandmother. I am coming. I've finished. I'm beginning." That's the end. We ended on page 276. Come on. Why? Gosh, that last part was hard for me to keep reading. Can only read for so long in a day. All right. So I don't think anybody's going to come up. I don't think anybody's going to come up. Next will be the liberty of the Aguascalientes. Aguascalientes. Yeah. All right. So we should go off and on. So I'm going to go ahead and just close it out. Usually I have someone come up to help me out, but that person is gone to a organization meeting. So, yeah. So, but anyways, we should probably hit halfway around. Oh, we already hit past halfway, I think. Yeah. Wait, 350 I think is halfway. Yeah. So when we hit the 300s, we'll probably hit halfway. All right, everybody. It's good to know about this. People should investigate the Zapatistas and what they're doing now. Seems like that you can send out letters to them. I wonder if I can find out how to do that. That'd be interesting to do. Send out letters and see if they reply when they can. That'd be interesting, you know? All right, everybody. Well, I wish you all well. Thank you.